The problem with science communication.
On December 1st, 2022, the journal Nature published a cover story about a holographic wormhole. It was purportedly created inside a quantum computer to probe the intersection of quantum mechanics and gravity. The story kicked off a frenzy of tweets and news headlines.
Nobody is a video about wormholes.
Seen a wormhole? Nobody has produced one.
Well, we'll take the world's best quantum computer and see if we can map that into building the wormhole.
The wormhole becomes traversable. It opens. You really can go through.
This video was sponsored by Shopify.
So it's all packed.
The problem was, of course, that no wormhole had been created.
It feeds off itself, right? When one story starts, then other media outlets grab hold of it.
It's just a hoax then.
It spreads very, very quickly.
What actually happened is that a quantum computer is built, and within this quantum computer you can do some calculations. Calculations that
So it seems that you can actually go to time travel, I guess.
done with my
Wormhole is created.
iPhone. Because all the most powerful quantum computers today at most do calculations that can easily be done on my iPhone.
You basically have something that represents the mathematics of a wormhole. But the way the story was sold, of course, is that in doing this, whatever calculation they did, they had created the wormhole.
They say so in the same sense in which I could say, look, my children has built a rocket that goes to the moon. Say, wow, what kind of child you have? Yeah, here it is. And I show you a little sketch on a piece of paper when there is a drawing of a rocket going to the moon. I say, look. So what the quantum computer has done is exactly that. It's a little sketch of what could be perhaps a wormhole in some hypothetical theory, which is probably wrong. Is this interesting? Yes, it is interesting, because the fact that with quantum computers you can do these things mean that quantum computers a little bit begin working. So people get excited about that, and then they go out and tell to the world, oh, we've created a wormhole in a quantum computer. Overemphasizing the wormhole, which probably don't exist, the theory being used of that, which probably is wrong, and the utility of quantum computers, which is not yet there. So that's
and that's why I should probably read the political or just the headline.
Bad communication, very bad communication. I was embarrassed, I was angry with my colleagues who did that.
To me, it looks like the source of this problem is bad incentives. Scientists need to secure funding for their research, and increasingly that depends on attracting public attention to their work.
It's just become part of the culture of science that it's expected that you will have some sort of media attention. And to get that attention, you have to sell your science. And often it's not the result of the science that is the story, it's something else.
Universities seek to promote themselves, to attract students and bolster their reputations.
And nowhere in the scientific method is, and you release a press release. But it's just become part of the norm now.
Press releases simplify and may overstate the research. And journalists just want to get as many clicks on their stories as they can. The end result of this incentivized game of telephone can be oversimplified, sensationalized headlines.
It's all about the headlines.
Science that is just plain wrong. Now, I myself have been guilty of overhyping a science story. Back in 2014, I made a video about the Bicep 2 experiment.
So this is one of the hugest discoveries in science of all time.
Researchers reportedly detected polarization in the cosmic microwave background radiation. Allegedly, it was caused by gravitational fluctuations just a fraction of a second after the Big Bang. The result was considered the first real evidence of the quantum nature of gravity and a smoking gun for inflation theory. Experimenters even surprised Andre Linde, one of the founders of inflation theory, with the news.
Let's just hope that it's not a trick. I always live with this feeling, what if I'm tricked? What if I believe into this just because it is beautiful?
Unfortunately, further observations showed that it was likely just dust in our own galaxy rather than primordial gravitational waves that created the polarization in the CMB. So I took down my video. And to this day, I am wary about making videos about breaking science news. Like any type of breaking news, there is a high probability that early reports will turn out to be wrong. Just a few months ago, a paper was uploaded to the arXiv preprint server claiming to have discovered the first room temperature ambient pressure superconductor.
Yeah, that's why I should wait a few hours or something before reporting.
This again triggered a flood of media
Especially breaking news.
attention.
A monumental breakthrough. Room temperature superconductor, LK99.
One of the most important scientific breakthroughs of the 21st century.
If the discovery were real, it would have been a big deal.
The room temperature superconductor stuff, of course, is such a dream. Because if it worked, it would revolutionize everything, right? Transmission of energy and that kind of stuff. The world would be different if it worked.
But even before attempts to replicate the material and its properties failed, there were clear signs that the claim was false. In the only published plot showing resistivity versus temperature, the resistivity did not drop to zero as you'd expect at the supposed critical temperature. Instead, it continued to decrease below this value. Plus, the resistivity scale was given in units of 10 to the minus 2 ohm centimeters. On that scale, any ordinary conductor would appear to have zero resistivity. Copper's resistivity, for example, is on the order of 10 to the minus 6 ohm centimeters. A video showed the material apparently levitating above a permanent magnet in a supposed demonstration of the Meissner effect. But in that same video, the material also sticks to the magnet, something a superconductor would not do. And finally, there is this plot showing that over the past 100 years, scientists
fully levitating.
have found new materials with progressively higher critical temperatures. But as of now, all the highest temperature materials only superconduct at very high pressures. For an ambient pressure room temperature superconductor, we would need a jump in critical temperature of around 125 degrees Celsius. That's a lot. And this brings up the point that it is the most unexpected and surprising results that get the most attention. But it is also these very same results that are the most likely to be false. In social science, it's been shown that studies that later failed to be replicated receive on average 153 more citations than studies that can be replicated. Similar buzz surrounds faulty research in the physical sciences.
The Italians, I'm Italian, came out announcing to the world some time ago that a neutrino goes faster than light and then measured it, okay? And it turned out to be a plug that was not fitting well.
Roll
so
over.
was not working.
Okay,
When the truth is discovered, it rarely gets as much attention as the original finding.
The fallout where everybody was going, oh, this doesn't work and this doesn't look right and there's no way this material can do what they say it's in, that sort of fizzles in the background. It doesn't get the same media attention.
There is the apt saying, a lie can travel around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. But that saying might need to be updated in the age of social media, when lies now have an even greater advantage. Do you think it's a bigger problem now than it used to be?
I must admit that I think it's getting worse. I think there's a feeling that you've got to change the world to be noticed by the media.
Overhyping science discoveries can give people a false sense of how science works. Like, if that latest discovery I hear about turns out to be false, what else could be untrue?
You can just do a great discovery and I think people will definitely notice.
Keep telling me that cosmology is in crisis and all this kind of stuff, because that's the kind of stories they hear in the media. Eventually people will say, well, why are we funding these things if it's always just turmoil?
Making bold, unsubstantiated claims also reduces trust in scientists.
So we're enlarging a little bit the conversation here. It's not just single pieces of news. I think there are entire fields which are hyped.
Entire fields of science that are hyped?
Yes.
But aren't really legit, or like just they're all hot air, or what's...
Oh, no, they're not hot air.
Fusion's like big in the news. People think it's close, right? There's startups, there's people getting billions of dollars.
Exactly. I don't know where we are there. Again, it's not my field. But there was one particular announcement, 1 year ago?
I remember this announcement, yeah.
Scientists have produced a nuclear fusion reaction that created more energy than was expended. A breakthrough to tap into the same kind of energy that powers the sun and the stars.
Simply put, this is one of the most impressive scientific feats of the 21st century. Right?
Nuclear fusion.
Which is bull again, because it is in the context of military research of nuclear energy, basically for weapons, in a way of doing it which at present has no visible way of how to become industrial way of producing energy.
Yeah, there's no way to scale.
There's no way to scale it up.
This is just lasers at a pellet.
Just, you little thing, and then you compress it enormously, and then basically it explodes because it's a mini nuclear explosion, and then you have more energy than the actual pressure energy that was needed to compress it. That's correct, but you need huge amount of external energy for doing that. That was sold as a big step toward the solving the energetic problem of the world, but it's not.
Back in '87, fusion was already, people were talking about it like it's around the corner. We just need 20 years more work and we'll crack it. And we have exactly the same story today with the current experiments.
Something that is not overhyped is this video's sponsor, Shopify. And I would know because I've been personally using Shopify for 8 years. Something a lot of people don't know, I highly recommend Back to Science Hype. Science is interesting in that you can divide it up into basically 2 categories. One is an established body of knowledge, and the other is speculations, things that might be true, but we don't really have any solid evidence for them yet. And because there can be an infinity of bad ideas and only one truth, most of these speculations are likely wrong. But the way certain topics are discussed in the media, it may be impossible to tell if they're part of the established body of knowledge or just very fanciful speculation.
There are too many books out there saying we have understood that the world is made by strings and the string theory. It's not true, not at all. We have not understood that the world is described as string theory. We have a very interesting tentative theory, which is string theory, which has had some success and some failures. And that's interesting. If you want to tell about this research, do tell about this research, but don't tell people that it's what we have learned about the world.
And there's some punishment for spreading misinformation.
The question I have is how do we get past the
some rules and regulations or something?
overhyping of science? Because it seems like the system is set up to reward overhyping. It rewards the journalists because they get the clicks. It rewards the scientists. They may get the money or the attention. So I don't know. I'm kind of curious whether a solution is possible.
Yeah, I think there is one. And it's exactly what you're doing. By talking about the fact that there is a risk of overhyping. If I can go out and say, oh, my quantum computer produced a wormhole, and nobody says anything, that's a problem. If we talk about the risk of hyping, if we talk about the risk of presenting ideas, theories, radical results, which are very, very tentative as solid, then we sort of immunize ourselves against this danger.
Science is not presented on the news like sport is presented on the news, right? At the end of the news, you get
I guess like the Copizilla
10 minutes of
scams.
sports where they will talk about the fact that somebody kicked a ball around in a field and it's not that particularly important. So you get the full rundown of lots of bits and pieces of what's going on. But to get a science story, it has to be earth-shattering kind of thing. There has to be a big story. What many scientists would like is this larger picture of the fact that the entire enterprise is moving forward, right? That there are lots of things happening, and we definitely know more tomorrow than we do today, but that's not the way that it gets picked up by the media.
Well, ultimately, almost everyone is incentivized to sensationalize scientific findings. So I think it's important to remember that anytime you hear a science story on the news. Surprising, unexpected results that have not been independently replicated, they are more likely than not to be wrong. But despite this, I remain convinced that science is the best way to get at the truth. I mean, sure, in the short term, some may seek the spotlight by rushing the data analysis, overstating results, or circumventing peer review. But in the long term, that is not going to win you the Nobel Prize. The bold claims, mistakes, and dead ends, they will fade into oblivion, and only sound science that is vigorously tested and independently validated, that is what makes it into the accepted body of knowledge.
Okay, that was a good video, I guess.